Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Faced with a powerful enemy, Qian Duoduo finally chose to fight using his own martial soul. He was willing to become Xian Lin'er's shield. Xian Lin'er, who was in her green flame dragon form, glanced at Qian Duoduo beside her. Faint light flickered in her eyes as she lowered her voice and growled, "Be careful, old Qian. Don't worry." His black dragon shield's dragon mouth opened and closed. The Bear Lord made his move at this moment. The thick and dense golden light on its body suddenly all concentrated toward his twin claws, and his initially dark golden claws instantly became brilliantly golden. Streaks of light that resembled waves flowed on the surface of his razor-sharp claws, eventually stopping at the edge of his claws. "Go to hell, the both of you," the Bear Lord shouted ferociously as he slashed his sharp claws towards Xian Lin'er, as if he were cutting open heaven and earth. A terrifying scene appeared. 10 razor-sharp golden blades that were at least 1,000 meters long appeared on his dark golden terraclaws, and 10 enormous gashes were instantly torn open in the sky as the bear's frightening claws slashed towards Xian Lin'er. The Bear Lord was furious, and the consequences were serious. Xian Lin'er's spear did injure him. Even though his wounds weren't serious, the Bear Lord was irascible and had a terrible temper. He had dominated the Great Star Doe Forest for so many years, and it had been a long time since he was last hurt. His fight had just begun, and his opponent had already injured him. That was incredibly humiliating to him. He was one of the most arrogant kinds of soul beasts, and he didn't give face to anyone except for Qian. Everyone feared him in the Great Star Doe Forest. The Bear Lord was hurt when he had just started his fight today. It infuriated him. The attack that he was unleashing at the moment wasn't one of his innate abilities. Instead, he had managed to grow it over time, and by relying on his formidable strength. This was similar to a human soul master's self-invented fighting technique, yet this attack was even stronger than those self-invented fighting techniques, because the Bear Lord was raising his dark golden terraclaw's destructive power to its strongest possible level. The Bear Lord's giant 1,000-meter claws actually tore open the sky. Those deep and hideous gashes produced enormous vacuum forces, and Qian Duoduo and Xian Lin'er were being forcefully sucked towards them. They hurriedly channeled their soul power, and only then could they barely stabilize themselves. The green dragon head that had condensed in front of Xian Lin'er before this flew forward uncontrollably. Xian Lin'er hadn't expected the Bear Lord's attack to have such effects, and she had no time to control her dragon head further. She gritted her teeth and activated all her soul power to propel that green dragon head further. Dragon roars echoed throughout the sky as the green flame dragon's head rose through the air. Tremendous disintegrating powers tainted the sky with bluish-green hues, and everything seemed exceptionally gorgeous. It was a pity that this gorgeousness didn't last for very long. When those frightening 1,000-meter-long claws tore through the sky, the bluish-green colors were swiftly consumed by the space that had been slashed open. Xian Lin'er's green dragon head was almost instantly torn into a million pieces. The Bear Lord had coined this attack his Skytear Claw. He had once attempted to challenge Qian's authority, and had relied on this attack to severely wound Qian. Of course, Qian taught him a very, very painful lesson afterwards, because of this very fact. Qian treasured the Bear Lord's strength, so he didn't kill him for this affront. Otherwise, the Bear Lord would have become Qian's food a long time ago. The Bear Lord's Skytear Claw only paused momentarily in the air when Xian Lin'er's green flame dragon head blocked it. Its intense golden light dimmed momentarily before it continued slashing down towards Xian Lin'er. Xian Lin'er growled as bluish-green light circles glowed on her green flame dragon form one after another, and surged out continuously. The Bear Lord's razor-sharp claws had arrived, and these light circles forcefully blocked those claws. However, the light circles didn't last for long. The Bear Lord's Skytear Claw cut through and shattered those light circles one after another, like a hot knife cutting through butter, and his sharp claws were coming closer and closer to Xian Lin'er. The green lights on Xian Lin'er's body became stronger, and the green flames burning on her body caused the air around her to twist and contort. But even so, she still couldn't stop those sharp claws from descending upon her. Xian Lin'er understood in this moment that she was wrong from the start, and her choice to meet the Bear Lord's force with force was her gravest mistake. The dark golden terraclaw bear was most adept at breaking through defenses, and his offensive capabilities were just far too strong. She didn't stand a single chance meeting force with force, and she should have chosen hit-and-run tactics. Perhaps then she would have been able to hold the Bear Lord down for a longer time. Unfortunately, understanding everything now was far too late. The Bear Lord's claws tore open the sky, and those deep gashes in the sky possessed immense suction force. The reason why this attack was terrifying was because his opponent would know that the Bear Lord's sky-tear claw possessed frightening attacking strength, but the deep gashes in the torn space would pull his opponent in. So his opponent had no choice but to meet force with force. Am I going to die just like this? Right at this moment, Xian Lin'er suddenly felt her entire body lighten, and the pressure in front of her abruptly disappeared. She could see a huge patch of black in front of her. An enormous black shield blocked for her, and the Bear Lord's sharp claws slashed against this shield with ear-piercing slicing sounds. Black dragons circled around the shield, and waves of dragon roars sounded like laments as 9 soul rings sparkled continuously. They released soul skills one after another in an attempt to block the terrifying sharp claws, but the shield itself was quivering violently. Xian Lin'er was behind this shield, but she could clearly see cracks starting to appear one after another. No! Xian Lin'er shouted at the top of her voice, and bolted forward in a flash, so that she could continue blocking those dark golden terror claws. However, a ray of black light shot out from behind the shield and cocooned her. Black light burst out from the shield immediately afterwards. Vigorous booms rang out continuously as the Bear Lord's sky-tear claw finally erupted into golden dots that dissipated into the sky, and the deep gashes in the sky closed up at the same time. Black light descended from the sky and plummeted to the top of Shrek City's western wall. Everything happened too quickly, to the point where Shrek Academy's various powerful individuals were too late to reinforce Xian Lin'er even if they wanted to. They could only watch everything unfurl before their very eyes. The Bear Lord's radiance was conspicuously dimmer than before after he unleashed his sky-tear claw. His chest heaved up and down as he panted faintly. Even with his 470,000 years of cultivation, he still had to take a breather after using all his strength in one attack. A green beam of light surged into the sky above Shrek City, and blocked the Bear Lord. It was Elder Song, who had a furious look on her face. Elder Song hadn't participated directly in the fighting. Instead, she had coordinated with everyone and supported them from one side, so that she could respond to any emergencies or dangers that might occur on any front. Xian Lin'er hadn't expected the Bear Lord to use his signature move from the get-go, and Elder Song didn't see that coming either. She was originally focused on another side of the city. From her perspective, with her daughter and her daughter's husband teaming up against the Bear Lord, they would be able to hold him back even if they couldn't defeat him. Who would have thought that the Bear Lord wouldn't follow conventional behavior and unleash his sky-tear claw at the start of the fight? Xian Lin'er and Qian Duoduo had already clashed with the Bear Lord's sky-tear claw by the time Elder Song realized what was going on. Elder Song instantly transformed into a green beam and rocketed towards the Bear Lord, using her martial soul true body, her green shadow godly hawk. The truth was that Elder Song's abilities were the best counter to the Bear Lord. She could best evade the Bear Lord's destructiveness with her speed. Back at the top of the city wall, the black light struck the city wall and revealed its original form. Qian Duoduo. Both he and Xian Lin'er were back in their human form at this point. Xian Lin'er was in his embrace, but Qian Duoduo's tall and strong body was full of cuts and gashes that wove across his entire frame. Flesh and skin rolled and folded, and glaring white bones were revealed on many parts of his body, as if he were a man made of blood. While a mouthful of blood spurted from Qian Duoduo's mouth onto Xian Lin'er's body. His muscular frame swayed as he forced himself to put Xian Lin'er on the ground before he crumpled down next to her. Duo. Xian Lin'er hugged him tightly, and her eyes were filled with tears. Of course she knew what Qian Duoduo had just done. In order to block the Bear Lord's attack, Qian Duoduo chose to detonate his black dragon shield. He had relied on the formidable offensive strength that a title Duoduo could produce by detonating his martial soul to dispel the Bear Lord's frightening sky-tear claw. However, Qian Duoduo was severely injured because of that. Was detonating one's martial soul that easy? Martial souls were a part of any human on the Duoduo continent, and the stronger one's martial soul was, the more intimate its fusion was with one's body. To say that one's martial soul was the most important part of one's body for title Duoduo couldn't possibly be wrong. Qian Duoduo didn't just detonate his own martial soul, as he had to take the rest of sky-tear claw's remaining force as well. Fresh blood fountained from Qian Duoduo's mouth. His pupils were already starting to grow slack and disorganized, but his face was strangely full of smiles. Duoduo, how are you? Duoduo. Xian Lin'er wasn't good at healing at all, and she didn't know how to help him. Why are you so foolish? Why did you take the brunt of everything by yourself? You? Xian Lin'er was sobbing uncontrollably at this point. Lin. Hair. I've always wanted to call you that. Except I never dared to on normal days. But at a time like this, I dare. Because if I don't call you that now, I may never get the chance again. Qian Duoduo's voice was quivering, but he tried his best to steady his voice. Blood continued flowing from his mouth as he spoke, and even his nose and ears were bleeding profusely. The Bear Lord's attack wasn't just razor-sharp, it also possessed immense vibratory force. Right at this moment, a shadow swiftly flew over to Xian Lin'er and Qian Duoduo and landed right next to them. He pressed his hand down on Qian Duoduo, as countless verdant bluish-green vines surged out from his hands and quickly attached themselves to Qian Duoduo's body. 9 soul rings emerged from beneath his feet and circled around his body. His first, fourth, and 6th soul rings glowed first as gentle bluish-green light flowed continuously into Qian Duoduo. This man, who came forward in time to treat Qian Duoduo, was the only elder of the Sea God's Pavilion who was adept with healing and treatment, Elder Zhuang, who was an auxiliary type titled Doluo. He was the one who had helped to stabilize Huo Yuhao's injuries along with Elder Xian, when Huo Yuhao returned after plucking a yearning heartbroken grass. On the battlefield, he also became the busiest person, moving to treat whoever was injured. As Qian Duoduo suffered a critical injury, he naturally rushed over as quickly as possible. When Xian Lin'er saw Elder Zhuang, it was as if she had seen a life-saving straw. Elder Zhuang, save him, quick, save him. How's Duoduo? Elder Zhuang looked very gloomy and gently shook his head. Difficult. When Xian Lin'er heard that, her tears started to flow uncontrollably once again. If even Elder Zhuang, who was the most adept at healing in Shrek Academy, claimed that saving Qian Duoduo was difficult, more than half of Qian Duoduo's life was already gone. Duoduo, you can't die. How can you die? You are so strong. You'll be able to survive. You'll be able to, right? Tell me that you'll be able to survive. Xian Lin'er grabbed onto Qian Duoduo's hand tightly, and her voice was hoarse from all the crying. Qian Duoduo coughed twice, and spat out 2 foamy mouthfuls of blood. He looked slightly better, after being treated by Elder Zhuang. At this point, 2 other figures rushed over. They were Yang Xiaozhe and Cai Maya, the 2 deans of the Martial Soul Department. They were shocked when they saw Qian Duoduo, and they also noticed the situation on the west side of the city. Xian Lin'er and Qian Duoduo were both struck down by the Bear Lord's all-out attack. As they didn't know how the 2 of them were faring, they naturally rushed over to check out the situation immediately. Old Qian, how are you? Yang Xiaozhe squatted down on the other side of Qian Duoduo. Qian Duoduo chortled, I'm fine. It's pretty good like this. The 2 of you came at the right time. I've some things to say since I've some time left. Xian Lin'er's eyes were filled with tears as she said, Duoduo, stop talking. Focus, and let Elder Zhuang treat you properly. You mustn't die. You? Elder Zhuang seemed to have used up a lot of soul power, as he treated Qian Duoduo, and Qian Duoduo's voice slowly became smoother. He laughed bitterly. Although my cultivation can't compare to the 2 of you, do you really think I don't know my own condition? Let me finish talking. Xian Lin'er was sobbing as she said, You can say anything you want. Qian Duoduo's gaze turned gentler as he looked at her. Lin'er, I like you very much. It's true. From the day I entered the academy, I've always liked you. However, you should know that I'm not good enough for you. You're so pretty, and you capture everyone's attention. I can only hide my liking for you deep in my heart, and I can only watch you from afar. Even so, I'm already very satisfied. Xian Lin'er was in a daze as she looked at Qian Duoduo. Her face turned slightly pale. Although they had been married for years, Qian Duoduo had never said anything like this to her before. Qian Duoduo had a reminiscent look in his eyes, then, I could see you every day in the academy, and it was the greatest blessing for me. However, this blessing soon faded away. As I silently observed you, I discovered that you'd already developed a liking for someone else. You liked Yang Xiaozhe. Both of you are assault-type soul masters. His handsome, talented, and has a strong martial soul. There were so many students in our class that had a crush on him then. Yang Xiaozha's face turned red as he heard this, and he twisted his head to look at Cai Maya. Cai Maya acted like she didn't hear anything and only smiled slightly at him to hint that she didn't mind. Yes, Xiaozha is much more outstanding than me and is better than me in all aspects. At that point in time, I became slightly jealous. I was jealous that he was able to capture your heart. To surpass him, I gave my all in the hopes of catching up to him. However, a nightmare happened to me. After a temporary, preliminary selection by the academy, we were about to be placed in different classes. As a defense-type soul master, I couldn't possibly be in the same class as you. I really hated myself then for being a defense-type soul master. I really wished I was also an assault-type, or a control-type soul master. In that way, I could continue to see you every day. The rules of the academy couldn't be changed, and I was eventually separated from you. After I went to another class, I thought to myself that I had to give my all. Even if I couldn't obtain your love, I had to defeat Xiaozha. At least in terms of abilities, I had to be better than him. I cultivated tirelessly every day. Once classes were over, I would always quietly walk past the front of your class. If I was lucky, I could take a glance at you, which left me very happy. However, a bigger nightmare occurred. After some time, I heard some of your classmates mention that you were dating him and that the two of you had become a couple. It was a huge blow to me then. I was extremely upset for a couple of days. I really wanted to charge in front of you and tell you that I liked you. However, I was never courageous enough. When I looked in the mirror and saw myself, I only felt inferior. Do you still remember? During the first internal competition of the academy, I finally had the chance to defeat Xiaozha. I faced him during the semifinals. I fought extremely hard for that fight, and we fought for 2 hours until our soul power was drained. I still lost in the end, though. However, I was surprised when all the teachers believed that I was unyielding and was willing to fight. They believed that I had great potential and started to nurture me. After that, I made my way into the inner courtyard and became a disciple there. I finally had more time to see you. However, I was extremely tormented every time I saw you because he was always with you. Xiaozha's talent was indeed too great. I kept on chasing after him, but I wasn't able to catch him. Every time we fought, I always lost. I started to believe that there was something called talent in this world. After he became Elder Mu's disciple, he managed to widen the gap between us. I knew then that, perhaps, I wouldn't be able to surpass him in this life. Yang Xiaozha sighed as he silently listened to Qian Duoduo's words. He said, Duoduo, do you know? I was also giving my all at that point in time, because you were chasing me too hard. I had no choice to place all my focus on my cultivation and studies to prevent being surpassed by you. In fact, you'd already succeeded then. As I was too focused on these two things, I spent very little time with Lin'er. Qian Duoduo chortled and said, is that so? That's great, then. If it were any other time, Yang Xiaozha might have turned sarcastic. However, Qian Duoduo was extremely pale right now, and his life aura was getting weaker and weaker. Even though they hadn't shared a harmonious relationship in all these years, because of Xian Lin'er, Yang Xiaozha couldn't say anything harsh to Qian Duoduo at this point. Qian Duoduo twisted his head to look at Yang Xiaozha, and the gentleness in his eyes turned into fury. If it were me, I wouldn't have left Lin'er for even a minute. I would have protected and taken care of her forever. What about you? You are a scoundrel that only knows how to hurt her. You said that you cultivated tirelessly, because I was hot on your heels, but why did you have so much time to flirt with other girls? Why did you hurt Lin'er? Even so, she stayed true and continued to love you deeply. Do you know that? Yang Xiaozha was half red and half pale. When he looked at Qian Duoduo, who was getting weaker and weaker, he wasn't able to muster a reply. In fact, Qian Duoduo wasn't wrong. Cai Maya walked to Xian Lin'er's side and gently patted her shoulder. After this, she turned around and left. She didn't care about Yang Xiaozha and Xian Lin'er's past. However, she was one of the girls that Yang Xiaozha had flirted with. In addition, she was the victor out of all the girls. She wasn't willing to listen any further. Furthermore, they belonged to the same golden generation. Seeing that Qian Duoduo was on the verge of death, she couldn't control herself. Qian Duoduo glared at Yang Xiaozha, and his face started turning red. It seemed as if he had regained some vitality due to his fury. You hurt Lin'er time and time again, but she forgave you time and time again. It was only when she saw you getting intimate with other women that she decided enough was enough and left you. Yang Xiaozhe lowered his head in pain. Yes, I wasn't resilient enough. However, I realized my mistake after Lin'er left me. I searched everywhere for her, but I didn't manage to find her. I only wanted another chance. It was only after losing her that I realized how much I loved her. However, she had already become your wife after she returned. Do you know how much pain I felt then? You deserve it. Xian Lin'er suddenly lifted her head and shouted at Yang Xiaozhe. Yang Xiaozhe seemed to have lost all his energy and his head drooped. Lin'er is right. You deserve it. After she returned, did you persist? You chose to be a coward and quickly got together with Maya before marrying her. Have you ever admitted your mistake to Lin'er? Did you try to seek her forgiveness? No, you didn't. You are a coward. Qian Duoduo's voice was trembling right now, and he started to speak choppily. Yang Xiaozhe, let me tell you something. My marriage with Lin'er was actually a result of her desire to make you infuriated. Nothing has ever happened between us. Even after being married for years, we've remained clean until now. Lin'er is still a virgin. It's because she loves you that she couldn't handle the pain you brought to her, and thought of such a method to test your love for her. What about you? What did you give her in return? Your gift to her was your marriage to Maya. What did you say? Yang Xiaozhe opened his eyes wide and grabbed the front of Qian Duoduo's shirt. There was an unbelievable look in his eyes. Bang! Xian Lin'er slashed her palm towards Yang Xiaozhe and roared furiously, "Don't touch him. If you dare touch him, I'll fight it out with you." Yang Xiaozhe struck a battlement after he was hit by Xian Lin'er. Given his cultivation, he shouldn't be in such a sorry state as he fell to the ground. However, he seemed as if he had lost his soul right now. Xian Lin'er was holding onto Qian Duoduo's shoulder with one hand and letting him rest on her body. She used her other hand to hold his hand and sobbed as she asked, "Why are you telling him all this? What's the point?" Qian Duoduo suddenly turned pale, and a wave of weakness caused him to even be unable to lift his eyelids. He slowly shut them, and his voice also became weaker. "Because I won't have the time to say it if I don't say it right now. You suffered so much for him in your heart all these years. How can he not learn it? Lin'er, get together with him if you still love him. I never, ever thought of stopping you. All these years, we were only a couple in name, but we aren't a true couple. You've always remained pure. In fact, I've always wanted to muster the courage to ask you whether you even like me a little. However, I've never dared to. I'm afraid that I won't be able to see you every day anymore. It's true, did you know that? All these years, I was most afraid that you'd suddenly end this marriage. Although it's not really a true marriage, I was still very comforted by it in my heart. I'm going soon. Lin'er, take good care of yourself. I've never had the courage to say anything, but I finally have it now. I love you. I really love you more than myself." After he finished speaking, his body trembled slightly, and he leaned his head in Xian Lin'er's embrace before he stopped breathing. Duoduo, Duoduo, Lin'er exclaimed anxiously. However, Qian Duoduo didn't react to her at all. "Duoduo, you're so silly. Why didn't you tell me all this earlier? Why are you so silly? Why did I fall in love with that scoundrel? I've already lost all hope for him in my heart. I know how well you treat me. It's just that I've been unable to cross the barrier in my heart. We were both too silly. I made you wait for so many years because I was too reserved. Duoduo, I'm sorry. Duoduo, will you wake up? I'll answer your question now. You also belong in my heart. I don't know if this is love, but humans have feelings. You've been with me for years and taken meticulous care of me. How could I not know this? I'm also a person with a heart. My heart has already been quietly reformed by you. It's just that I've been unwilling to admit it. I don't know if that feeling is love, but I really can't do without you. I can't leave you. Duoduo, don't die. Wake up. As long as you wake up, I'll be your real wife. I'll accompany you forever. Duoduo. Xian Lin'er was weeping, and Yang Xiaozhe was in a daze as he sat where he was. There was a depressed look on his face. He silently lowered his head, and didn't even dare to look at Xian Lin'er and Qian Duoduo. In terms of relationships, he was a complete failure. As he slowly stood up, Yang Xiaozhe walked up to Qian Duoduo and Xian Lin'er. He muttered, "Old Qian, you've won. I've won in terms of abilities. However, you've won in terms of relationships. In that regard, I've lost to you utterly. You used your persistence to trounce me completely. You're right. I don't deserve Lin'er's love, and I don't deserve to be with her. Old Qian, I admire you." As he spoke, he bent his waist and bowed respectfully at a 90-degree angle. At this moment, unfriendly coughs suddenly sounded. Elder Zhuang stood up and walked to Xian Lin'er's side. He patted her shoulder and said, "All right, stop crying. Send Duoduo back to rest." "What?" Xian Lin'er was stunned, and lifted her head to look at Elder Zhuang. Elder Zhuang acted as if nothing had happened and said, "He's lost too much blood and even detonated his martial soul. He's hurt badly, and can't drain too much energy. This is why I'll have to let him sleep for a while. I'll feed him some medicine when he returns. Given his physical condition, I'm sure he'll be fine in around 10 days' time." "Ah?" Xian Lin'er blinked. There were still tears in her eyes. However, she was completely in a daze. This turn of events was simply too sudden. Xian Lin'er was in slight disbelief, and her lips were shaking as she asked, Didn't you say just now that?" Elder Zhuang smiled and replied, "You were too frantic, because you were too concerned about him. Although he has fainted and his pulse is weak, he's not gone. I said that it was more difficult to treat him given his critical injuries. I didn't say they were untreatable. All right, quickly, send him back. The soul beasts are attacking the city with even greater intensity. I'm going to treat the others. Come back to fight too, and be careful not to be careless again." After he finished speaking, Elder Zhuang drifted into the air and disappeared. After watching Elder Xian disappear, Xian Lin'er took a look at Qian Duoduo again. She sensed his body more carefully, and saw that it was true that Qian Duoduo wasn't dead, although his breathing was weak. She stopped crying, but her face turned slightly red. Earlier, everyone around could clearly hear her confession. She wasn't even able to preserve her greatest secret anymore. However, it was truly wonderful that Qian Duoduo wasn't dead. Xian Lin'er didn't dare to look at the others around her, and she carried Qian Duoduo into the air and disappeared towards Shrek Academy. Elder Zhuang drifted to another place where there were other injured people. He wore a smile on his face. As he treated the wounded, he muttered to himself, "These two kids were really worrisome. Duoduo, you really owe me a huge favor." Ha ha. Xian Lin'er and Qian Duoduo's relationship finally bore fruit after a life-and-death situation. However, Shrek City was in a disastrous situation right now. Qian Duoduo was critically injured at the western side of the city, and Xian Lin'er had no choice but to temporarily leave the battlefield. Although the Green Shadow Doluo Elder Song managed to pester the Bear Lord using the speed of her Green Shadow Godly Hawk, the Bear Lord's terrifying offensive and defensive strength was simply too dominant. Elder Song found it very difficult to hold him off. The eastern side of the city was in slightly better condition. The Scarlet King's abilities were slightly inferior, and he was resisted by a rank 96 elder. The attack of the soul beasts from the east side was also not very ferocious. However, the northern and southern sides were getting into more and more trouble. The southern side was where the soul beast army's main attack was concentrated. Under the leadership of Bai Ji and her immense healing abilities, the soul beasts weren't afraid of death. Soul tools weren't able to completely suppress them anymore. While the explosions of stationary soul cannon shells managed to cause huge losses to the soul beast army, they also strengthened the resolve of the soul beasts. There were already soul beasts that were charging up towards the top of the city wall and starting to engage in close combat. The students from Shrek Academy were also slowly finding themselves in melee. Things were equally bad at the northern side of the city. The Myriad Demon King couldn't compare to the Bear Lord in terms of offensive strength, whose abilities could completely curb his own. However, the Myriad Demon King was much more effective on a battlefield than the Bear Lord. If the Bear Lord was like an assault-type Soul Master, then the Myriad Demon King was like a control-type Soul Master. The myriad demon king continuously unleashed countless vines from his body and swept them towards the top of the northern city wall. Although there were elders from the sea god's pavilion who tried to stop him, he was simply too strong, and also very sly. He kept moving around, and the two elders that were attacking him were helpless against him. Given that the Soul Beast army was approaching from beneath the city wall, they didn't dare to venture too far away. They could only keep on slashing the myriad demon king's vines. Even so, more than half of the large soul tools used to defend the city were destroyed by the myriad demon king. Furthermore, the vines also became ladders for the soul beasts to climb up the city wall. The northern city wall was in a critical situation. There were more soul beasts charging up towards the top there than on any other side. More and more of the elders from the sea god's pavilion had no choice but to proceed towards the northern city wall to hold the fort. Southern city wall. The Tang sect was slowly being integrated into the battle. Chen was standing in front, and he held his judgment sword in both hands. A lion-shaped, 10,000-year soul beast charged up towards the city wall and roared furiously into the sky. He shook the ordinary soldiers off balance with his roar. Chen pointed his judgment sword at him, and a sharp streak of sword light shot out. It transformed into a long sword that slashed toward this lion. However, this lion was very cunning. After sensing the sharp sword intent, it turned around and jumped off the city wall. It was undoubtedly the best way of dodging. However, the strike of a thunderous dragon claw came down diagonally and blocked its path. A huge cauldron also fell from the sky. It was struck with paralysis and shock, causing it to freeze in mid-air. A black light shone, and its head was chopped off. A huge lizard suddenly leapt up from the bottom of the city wall towards the Tang sect's formation. It was charging at Jiang Nan. Shu Sanxia pulled Jiang Nan and shifted their positions before his Xuanwu shield was unleashed. A boom rang out from his shield. This video will end here.